Hello, this is Dr. Chris Wildermuth, the Community Chair for the Leader Campus, and this is what I'm hoping will be just the first of a series of short presentations on topics that can be interesting to members of our community. And this first presentation is going to be an introduction to engagement. Just a little bit about myself. I am an associate professor at Drake University. That's a university in Des Moines, Iowa, where I coordinate the Master of Science in Leadership Development. I am also from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, so a shout out to members who have been to Rio de Janeiro or who are listening to me from Brazil somewhere from Rio de Janeiro. Okay, so here is our roadmap, what we're going to go through in this very brief and informal presentation. First, what does engagement mean? The second is the difference between job and organizational engagement. And finally, why all this matters to leaders. So let's get started. So first, what does engagement mean? Before I go into that, I wanted to ask you what you think these people have in common. Meryl Streep, Adele, Michael Phelps, and Julia Child. Think about it for a moment. So sure, it's true that these people are famous, but that's not really what I'm getting at. There's something else. Specifically, I'm talking about connection. It's hard to imagine Meryl Streep without thinking about acting immediately, or to think about Julia Child and not thinking about cooking. So basically, these people are the embodiment of their profession. You can't think of them without thinking about what they do. And that's basically what engagement means. Engaged people are deeply connected to what they do. So it's a very high bar. When people talk about engagement, very often they think it really means liking your job or job satisfaction. That's actually job satisfaction. And don't get me wrong, job satisfaction matters, but engagement is more than that. Likewise, engagement is more than work ethic. It's possible for you to have incredible work ethic and not be engaged at all. And finally, engagement is different from being committed to your job. Somebody could be committed to the job, somebody could be committed to the organization and still not be totally engaged. So there are two important points I've made so far. The first is that engagement means a connection between who you are and what you do. And the second is that engagement is a very high bar and goes way beyond commitment, work ethic, or mere job satisfaction. There's one more thing that I wanted to share, and that is engagement is not constant. It waxes and wanes. It goes up and down. So it's impossible for you to achieve total permanent engagement. That doesn't really exist. And you can only create conditions that maximize engagement most of the time. So now let's go to the second point in our roadmap, and that is the difference between job and organizational engagement. When we talk about job engagement, we talk about connection to the job, to what we actually do. When we talk about organizational engagement, we talk about connection to the organization. And there are differences between these two. Job engagement involves a combination of energy or physical engagement, and that means putting all that you have to that particular job that you're completing. The second component of job engagement is focus, and that is being able to avoid distractions while you work. And the third is what we most commonly associate with engagement, which is, I'm going to call passion, which is basically being in love with what you do. That's job engagement. It's possible, though, for you to have all those things and not to be engaged to the organization or not to feel connected to the organization. And when we talk about organizational engagement, we have two components. The first is what we call role expansion, which is when you start, well, expanding your role, doing more than what your job description is, if you will, trying to see what it is that you can change about your job to contribute to the most to the organization. And the second component is pride, pride in the organization. And that's usually associated with telling other people, I work for this organization. I am proud of being with this organization. I'm proud to have my name and my values and everything that I am connected to the place where I work. Now, you can imagine that it's possible for you to be passionately connected to what you do, but not necessarily passionately connected to where you do it. It's not very common, but it's possible. All right, let's get back to our roadmap. So why does all this matter to leaders? After all, this is the Leader Campus. So why is this a relevant topic for you as a leader? 4 reasons. The first one is that there's actually a very strong correlation between job engagement and organizational engagement. So basically, if a person is highly engaged to the job, it's likely that this person is also engaged to the organization. Or to put this in a different way, if the organizational engagement is suffering for a variety of reasons, then it's likely that that person's job engagement is also suffering. Remember that I told you early on that engagement is not a constant phenomenon. People are not completely engaged all the time. A second point is that if you remember what job engagement means, that passion, that energy, that narrow focus on what the person is doing, obviously that has a relationship to productivity, right? Or I shouldn't say obviously, but what the researchers have found is that it actually does. So you could potentially be losing a highly productive employee if that employee who has a strong connection to the job does not have a strong connection to the organization. In other words, somebody who has a strong connection to the job but not to the organization is a flight risk, and that person is probably somebody you would not want to lose. So that's point number 2. Point number 3, remember that I said that engagement is a high bar. It's also, though, a very high yield. You would want people in your organization who are focused and energized by what they do and who are passionate about what they do and who are also proud of your organization and saying great things about it, and whose values actually match that organization and who are constantly expanding their roles. You want those people. So it's worthwhile for you to consider engagement as a leader. And finally, the fourth component here is that about 70% of engagement is impacted by what the leader does or does not do. So in future iterations of the Leader Campus quick leadership programs or presentations, I'm going to be sharing with you what some of those components are. What is it that you can do as a leader so as to enhance engagement? For now, I wanted to extend an invitation to everyone. I am starting again a study that I conducted a while back in Linked HR, which is a huge group that Olivier Taupin founded. Olivier Taupin is the founder of this group as well. And it has to do with what I'm calling losing the light in your eyes, and that is the moment of disengagement. And I would really appreciate it if you could take a moment to complete the survey. It should be very, very fast. And in the announcement in which you saw the link to this particular presentation, you also see the invitation to the survey. So that's basically where I wanted to go today. I wanted to invite you all to go to the Leader Campus resources page on Joivy and to upload your own presentations, your own blogs, your own resources, whether you created them yourself or whether these are TED Talks or ideas or great resources that you would like to bring to the community, and then come back to the Leader Campus and ask a discussion question related to your resource. Thank you so very much. Happy learning and have a wonderful week.